starting out here with just this kind of sort of generic look at what the digestive tract wall is, and it should be fairly familiar. We have four major sections. We have a section called the mucosa, a section called the submucosa, a section called the muscularis, and then a section called the serosa. We're not really going to talk about the oral cavity. The first place that we're going to look at along the digestive tract is a tube called the esophagus. And the esophagus connects the oral cavity with the stomach. Some unique features to it. This is just a really low magnification look at the esophagus. You can see kind of the different layers, the submucosa, mucosa, the muscularis here. The outer layer is interesting. This is the only part of the digestive tract that does not have serosa. The outer layer of the esophagus is called adventitia, and we've seen adventitia before with the respiratory tract. Note the lumen, or that open space in the esophagus, is somewhat collapsed. That's the normal state of the esophagus. When we swallow food, that food mass, we refer to that as a bolus. That food mass causes the esophagus to open up. The longitudinal view to give you a look at the esophagus from that direction. Here we go. It's a nice slide, labeled pretty well. Another unique feature of the esophagus. Note the epithelium here. This is stratified squamous epithelium. Here's a close-up look so you can see the epithelial, that stratified squamous, the lamina propria, and then the muscularis mucosa here. This is submucosa. But you can see the difference in appearance in the muscularis mucosa and the connective tissues that surround it. Just another look. Again, to me, the hallmark feature when I look at the esophagus, the thing that makes the esophagus jump out is this stratified squamous epithelium. I see that, I know I'm looking at the esophagus. Let's take a quick look at it. There are four parts of the stomach. When we look at the gross anatomy, that's kind of what we see on this slide here. We have this area coming in that's called the cardia. And the cardia is just a kind of this, you know, it's not an exact dividing line, but just this general area around the cardiac valve that's here. The cardiac valve is a type of sphincter valve, so it's tightly closed. It can open up. Sometimes you see that referred to as the esophageal sphincter. It's also the cardiac sphincter. And this part of the stomach is the cardia. Above where the esophagus comes in, this area up here, this is known as the fundus of the stomach. Okay? The majority of the stomach, most of the stomach, is located in a region that we call the body of the stomach. And then as we're moving from the stomach into the small intestine, we have a region of the stomach called the pylorus. And there's another sphincter at the end of the stomach called the pyloric sphincter. Okay? Gross anatomy-wise, another difference in the stomach that we see is instead of having two layers of muscularis externa, we have three. We have this outer longitudinal, now the circular layer is middle, and then there's an inner oblique layer. Remember oblique, the fibers run at an angle. All right? We have a couple of curvatures of the stomach. There's a lesser curvature here and a greater curvature here. And then the wall of the stomach, we have these structures called rugae. Singular would be ruga. They're folds in the wall of the stomach, and they actually are made up of the mucosa and submucosa. And normally they're folded up when the stomach is empty, but as food material enters the stomach expands, and those rugae will start to straighten out. So the rugae give the stomach a way of having or increasing its surface area so that they can accommodate additional volume. Here's some slides just showing you, this is low magnification, shows you the different layers. There's the mucosa, the submucosa, and the muscularis. You can even see the serosa at the bottom. Just another very low magnification. You have the mucosa here, submucosa, and then muscularis. This slide is interesting because it shows you the rugae. You can see, here's the muscularis, again, fairly large, very thick. Submucosa's here, mucosa's up here. And again, we can see that it's the submucosa and mucosa that make up these folds of the ruga. This is just showing you a single ruga. Here's muscularis, this is the submucosa, and then the mucosa is here. Again, another ruga, just so you can see what that looks like. Mucosa, submucosa, muscularis. Okay, so here we see what, again, mucosa and submucosa. Here's the submucosa here, muscularis mucosae. What we're seeing in the stomach is we have this structure of what are known as gastric pits and gastric glands. Now, what the different glands are is going to vary depending on what part of the stomach you're in. We're not going to look at all of them. We'll focus on a few. But the pits would be more in the area of the upper mucosa. As we go deeper in the mucosa, we see that the pits transition into these glands. Here's a better look at that. We can see lamina propria. We can see those simple columnar epithelium. This is a pit, and this is a gland. Okay, its structure is. I want you to note this is this is the muscularis mucosae here. So mucosa, submucosa. Note the duodenal glands throughout the submucosa. The duodenum. These are Brunner's glands. There's the muscularis layer, the circular, the longitudinal layer. Back down to two layers of smooth muscle in the muscularis externa, and then we have the serosa down here. Small intestine, but mainly in the duodenum. So this is really the key area of digestion, the small intestine, specifically the duodenum. So let's move on and look at that a little more. Okay, this is a great slide, really lovely slide of the duodenum. Note the serosa here. Really good look at the serosa. Here is the muscularis externa. You can kind of see the two layers here. This is the submucosa. You see all those Brunner's glands. Here's the muscularis mucosa. And then this is the mucosa here. Note then that we have, here are the villi. Okay, and from the villi, I'm not going to talk about it right now, but I want you to note the structure so we get to it. Here are the villi that are coming up, and then they dip down to make these little valleys, if you will. It's kind of akin to what we saw with the gastric glands in the stomach. In the intestine, these are called intestinal crypts. They're also known as crypts of Lieberkühns. Somebody bluish material in here, dark bluish. That is the lamina propria. All right, so really nice look at the duodenum. This is just an overall look at the duodenum. We've seen this slide. So this is what a duodenum looks like. It's about the first foot of the small intestine. The next portion of the small intestine is called the jejunum. And that's what this looks like here. Note that the villi are starting to break down. They don't look quite like they do in the duodenum. And also the Brunner's glands are gone. So in this section we might see like open circles or open semicircles, which would be arteries and veins, but we're not going to see any Brunner's glands. Otherwise it should look basically the same. And then the last portion of the small intestine is called the ileum, and you can see that the structure of the mucosa is really quite different. We don't really see a lot of those villi. Okay. What is unique with the ileum is within the submucosa we have these lymphatic nodules. They're called Peyer's patches. Okay, again they have a lymphatic function as we are transition patches again. Okay, so that's small intestine. That's an important one. That's a big one. We've reached the final section of the digestive tract. We'll try and move through this relatively quickly, so you know this is a long lecture. People are getting tired. We're almost there. This is the large intestine. The function of the large intestine is twofold. One, it is water reclamation. So it's very important to reclaiming water from digestion. And as kind of a side benefit there, it also reclaims a lot of the water-soluble vitamins that are in our system. And then it's the elimination of solid waste. Okay? So as we look at just the general structure, we refer to these as the colon. Here is the joint, the ileocecal valve. So the ileum comes in here. Note there is a blind alley. The process of digestion we would expect to occur and flow this way, but there is a blind alley where material could go the other way. This area is called the cecum, and at the cecum is the appendix. This area is filled with a large amount of bacteria, flora that are important, they're vital to our overall biochemistry. But otherwise, and the appendix is understood to have some sort of immune response. It's not horribly well understood, but now it's known that this isn't just one of those leftover organs. It does have a role, so doctors are much less eager to remove appendices than they used to. So anyways, we move up. We have a stretch of the colon called the ascending colon. Then we move across. This is the transverse colon. We have the descending colon here. We turn around the sigmoid colon where it kind of curves. Then it enters into the rectum and finally the anus. All right? Then we have other structures which maybe you're not as familiar with that are unique to the large intestine. We have these areas of thickened muscle, smooth muscle here. They are called teniae coli, and there's about 3 of them kind of wrapping around the large intestine. We have these little fat bodies here. They're called epiploic appendages. And then note that the large intestine is organized as pouches. These pouches, individually, they're known as a haustrum, and plurally it would be a haustra. All right, so just a quick look at the overall gross anatomy of the colon. Just take a quick look at the structure. Kind of looks similar to the small intestine. The difference is we do not have any villi. We have the serosa. It's a very thick serosa. Here's the muscularis externa, submucosa, and then again we have the mucosa where we have simple columnar epithelium. We kind of have these pits here. Along with that simple columnar epithelium, note there is a very large number of goblet cells present. Okay. Here's a slide, a cross-section of the large intestine, just focusing on the teniae coli. So you can really see what those extensions are. Here, low magnification. Here's high magnification. I think this is a neat slide because here you can see, here's the serosa. And the serosa is surrounding those extensions. Here's the muscularis layer. And note how this literally is just an extension of the muscularis. It's just pushed out and thickened in this area. Okay, and again, teniae coli here. This is just a different staining, highlighting different parts of the large intestine. Lamina propria here. Here we have some of those pits where you have the goblet cells are kind of this bluish color, this grayish green color. If you're here you can really see them. These are the simple columnar epithelium. Look at the same thing. This is the mucosa. This is kind of highlighting the large number of goblet cells that are present in the large intestine. And here we have a portion of large intestine. You see the goblet cells, see the simple columnar epithelium. This is lamina propria. This is just yet a different type of stain. Okay, so that's it. So large intestine is very similar. The key is, I know it looks like it here, but the key is there are no villi in the large intestine. Okay, a lot of material. Do we have any questions?